When red flags arise, schools can identify the root causes of students being off track. They can match students to interventions. They can provide interventions with fidelity. They can monitor the progress of flagged students. And they can assess whether the interventions are working. These actions encompass the 7-step EWIMS process for making data-driven decisions about student supports. Now we'll review each of the 7 steps in the EWIMS process. More information about each step is contained in the other videos in this series. Each step has a corresponding video. Step 1 is to establish roles and responsibilities. In Step 1, you assemble a school team. The team will work together to decrease red flags. When creating the team, make sure that you have the right people and are meeting at the right frequency and for the right duration. Ask yourself these questions. Who should be at the table? How regularly should we meet? How much time should we meet for? Depending on your constraints, you may choose to integrate the EWIMS process into the work of an existing team rather than create a new team. The main role of the EWIMS team is to conduct meetings, communicate plans, solicit feedback from stakeholders, and monitor progress. There are additional tasks related to team meetings. It is important to have the right people to execute these responsibilities. For additional guidance on team roles and responsibilities, please see the Step 1 video. Step 2 relates to using an early warning data tool. Although we will look next at the Michigan Data Hub tool, which has a user-friendly early warning indicator section, the EWIMS process may be used with any data tool that displays attendance, behavior, and course performance data. The EWIMS process does not depend on the use of a specific tool. In Step 2, teams retrieve and review data reports from their early warning data tool of choice. The Michigan Data Hub Early Warning Data Tool is shown here. The data dashboard facilitates flagging students by early warning indicator. Here you can see a student summary page that contains red and green flags, signifying whether the student has reached or exceeded a warning threshold. Step 3 involves reviewing the data. In Step 3, the team breaks down information for flagged students into manageable pieces and begins to ask, what does the data tell us? To do this, team members review which students are, and are not, flagged for the attendance, behavior, and course performance indicators of risk. Then, team members explore the data and look for patterns. In this process, they begin to identify gaps in the data and ask questions. On the basis of this initial review of the data, the team strategizes about how to prioritize student needs. After identifying in Step 3 who is flagged, the team asks in Step 4 why the flag is occurring. This is the most challenging of the steps, and the one most commonly skipped. Here, the team asks questions such as, why is the student failing a class? Why is the student late for school? The answers to these questions are important for matching student needs with appropriate interventions. Schools often focus on academic factors rather than factors related to the community, the school environment, the family, or other issues that affect students. To understand the big picture of what is going on with a student, the team needs to consider contextual factors. Is the student working late in the day to supplement her family's income? Is the student tardy because he has to walk his younger siblings to school? Step 4 involves interpretation or making sense of the data. The EWIMS process uses data and educator expertise to understand the underlying causes of risk behind the flags. This is done by looking beyond the indicators and considering underlying factors, identifying student strengths, exploring additional quantitative and qualitative data, and determining potential underlying causes of risk. Additional perspectives on a student can be helpful, because underlying causes of risk are not always quantifiable. Functional behavior assessment and universal screening, as used in a multi-tiered system of supports, or MTSS, can be excellent data sources to include. Looking at data beyond the indicators can also help to identify common needs among groups of students, raise new questions, and enhance understanding of why students at a particular school are sliding off track for graduation. Step 4 is important because it helps identify the reasons why a student is flagged, leads to appropriate interventions that are based on student needs, and may help address school and district-wide issues. It is only by understanding the underlying causes of risk, the root causes, that we can truly and effectively intervene. After coming to understand in Step 4 the underlying causes of risk, in Step 5, the team selects and assigns students to appropriate interventions to help them get back on track. Based on the conclusions drawn in Step 4, in Step 5, the team assigns students to specific supports or interventions. In order to effectively assign and provide interventions, we encourage teams to begin by taking stock of the interventions that already exist and the resources that are currently available. Then, by pairing existing resources with student needs, the team matches students to specific interventions. Next, the team agrees upon a plan and next steps. Who will do what by when? Finally, the team communicates the intervention plan to key stakeholders and puts the plan into action. Interventions vary by type, attendance, behavior, or course performance, and intensity, or tier. Generally, in a 3-tiered intervention system, Tier 1 interventions are available and applied to all students in the school. Tier 2 interventions are moderately intensive and applied to small groups of students with common needs, and sometimes individual students. Tier 3 interventions are the most intensive and are provided to individual students with the highest level of need. This table demonstrates taking stock of interventions that already exist by tier. The table includes one intervention for each early warning indicator, attendance, behavior, and course performance, for tiers 1, 2, and 3. Schools will have multiple interventions for each early warning indicator at each tier. Having a tiered system of intervention helps match students' needs to the right interventions. There are many resources for identifying evidence-based practices and interventions, including those listed here. The Great Lakes Comprehensive Center is working with several national centers to identify evidence-based interventions that support improving attendance, behavior, and course performance. Step 6 is about monitoring students and interventions. In this step, the EWIMS team evaluates the impact of interventions on individual students and groups of students with common needs. Monitoring student progress involves reviewing flagged students and looking for evidence of progress. By monitoring red flags, the team identifies students or groups of students whose needs are not being met, students who are showing progress, and students who are no longer struggling, as well as patterns across these groups. Then the team can revisit steps 3, 4, and 5 to make necessary course corrections. In addition to monitoring students in Step 5, teams also monitor the interventions themselves to see if they are working. In other words, was the right intervention implemented adequately to meet specific student needs? To do this, teams track whether interventions were implemented as intended, whether the student or students participated, and whether the duration and intensity were sufficient. If an intervention was implemented as planned, what was the outcome? How did students respond? Teams also track outcomes such as progress, fewer flags, changes, different flags, and patterns, similarities across groups of students who participate in an intervention. In Step 6, teams also seek anecdotal data, including checking in with families and appropriate stakeholders for their perspectives on how the intervention is serving the student. This may include checking in with the student for his or her perspective on how things are going. By monitoring interventions, the team can make necessary corrections and improve both individual student supports and the system of interventions available. We have come to the final step in the cycle. Step 7 embodies the commitment to continuous improvement. This is where teams review and make appropriate alterations to the process. Just as educators refine intervention plans for students, it is also important to refine the work of the EWIMS team. In this step, the EWIMS team reflects on each of the 6 previous steps. The conversation should focus on exploring what is working, what is not working, and how the work of the EWIMS team could be improved. For example, the team could analyze risk indicators and risk thresholds, or explore improvements in accessing reports. After reflection, the team can discuss specific changes to refine its work. We recommend carrying out Step 7 at least once a year.